All right. Great to see you guys, Judd, Paul, Lonnie, Irwin, and Oliver. Okay, so we pick up on page on Daf Memhe Amud Aleph, that's 45a, just four lines down from the top at the Mishnah. So for those in the art scroll, it should still be the first page. Again, Memhe Amud Aleph, 45a, starting with the Mishnah, the only Mishnah on this blot, but well, I shouldn't say, yeah, but it takes up about half of the Talmud. So it's a lengthy Mishnah, but actually it's not such a complicated Mishnah. It'll be interesting. So basically, the past few weeks we've been talking about the mitzvah of the hakafos of the Hoshanis that they would, kind of like what we do nowadays. They take the Hoshanis, they go around with the Aravos branches, but they did it all the days in the Beis Hamikdash, and then they did 7 circuits on Hoshana Rabbah. And again, as you can imagine, has a connection to like Yericho. They went around the city 7 times before the walls went down. I never looked into this, but I'd have to assume there's some connection also with the bride circling the groom 7 times as well at the wedding. I don't know if it seems kind of foreboding when you think about it, because if the whole precedent is Yericho, it's like, here comes your destruction. It's I'm not really sure thematically how that makes sense, but there must be some connection I'm not understanding. Anyway, all right, that sounds like one of those like kind of Sheva brachos or Ufraf Divrei Torah that the chassan's friend makes, and he thinks he's really funny, and everyone just like awkwardly and nervously laughs along with him. Okay. The best part is I still remember my younger brother decided that he spoke, I forgot it was my Ufraf for my brother's Ufraf. He decided he wanted to dispense marital advice. He's like, the important thing is, all the platitudes is that she's always right and blah blah blah. I'm like, you're not even married yet. You can't dispense that advice. But you hear all the platitudes, so then you know what to say. Okay, so mitzvah rava ketzad. So how does this mitzvah go down? Malkum hayelamatim Yerushalayim v'nikra Motza. There was this place called Motza. We'll talk about in the Gemara why it's called that name. But that's where they would go down and they would get their aravos. Yordan Lasham, they went down there. Malakta Misham, more bayos shel arava, these big branches of aravos. And as we'll see, I left my Mesivta Gemara at Shul, but it has a nice picture of like these huge arava branches that they would find for the mizbeach. It's more bayos shel arava. Ubayim v'zokvanos abetzidei hamizbeach, and they would come and they would bend it over. It would have to kind of arch over onto the altar. Rashe and kfufin agabe hamizbeach, right? So they're basically they shoot up an amma and then they come down an amma over the mizbeach. We'll talk about that in the Gemara. Taku veriu v'taku, and they would blow the shofar tkiya trua tkiya. Now, why would they do this? So Tosfos tells us, if you look on the side of the Tosfos, a very short Tosfos, it's only 2 words. Tosfos says, Mishum Simcha, because of gladness, because of the joy. So I joked, I said, this is like the most Hasidish Tosfos I have ever seen, Forget about the Lamdas, Mishum Simcha, for joy, for happiness. That's the answer. Whatever makes you happy. Okay. So that was the Hasidish Tosfos I found.
You're allowed to just blow the shofar whenever you feel like it?
There's no Isser, as far as I know.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Without a bracha?
on Rosh Hashanah morning we wait, but on just a random day, you want to just right now, Phyllis, assuming Moshe's not sleeping, you want to just take out the shofar and blow it.
No, with no bracha, of course.
Right, without a bracha, that would be true. Toby, looks like you want to say something.
I mean, in the art scroll in the footnotes here, it talks about them being trumpets, not the shofar.
Right. Yeah. True.
Let's see what Rashi says over here.
Yes, they interchange sometimes, shofar and trumpets, right?
Huh.
Yep.
Well, there's no Rashi on it, and Tos doesn't elaborate on. Let's see where Rabbi Chanel gives us anything. All right, I will take your word for it. That makes sense to me. All right, let's go with that. So they would do this b'chol yom akifenes hamizbeach pam achas. On all the days of Yontif, they would go around and make one circuit around the mizbeach. Va'omrim ana Hashem Oshiana ana Hashem hatzlichana. So according to one opinion, that's what they said. If you remember, like 2-3 months ago or something, whenever we were up to this, we learned that there's a connection in the psukim that talk about the lulav, which also has something like An Hashem Hoshiana. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Ani Vaho Hoshiana. You say Ani Vaho Hoshiana. Now what's Ani Vaho Hoshiana? So you look at Rashi, there's like this really, I mean, beyond my comprehension. Basically, there's the 72-letter name of God is hinted in these 3 psukim, and if you take the letters and conform them a certain way, you basically, this is what we got into is like basically there's some sort of very convoluted allusion to a special name of God based on the psukim, and you play around with the letters, and you wind up with Aniva Hoshiana. So it's more mystical. Va'oso hayom. And on the final day, on Hoshana Rabbah, Makivan es mizbeach sheva pamim, they went around 7 times. B'shas petirasan, and when they would leave, Mahin Omrim, it's a Yofi lecha mizbeach, Yofi lecha mizbeach, good to you, how beautiful are you, and great job mizbeach. Rabbi Elazar Omer, lecha ulecha mizbeach, lecha lecha mizbeach, to God and to you mizbeach, to God and to you mizbeach. And we'll talk about this later. Just like they would do during the week, they would do the same on Shabbos, but with the one variation. Right, because we learned in the previous Mishnah that if Hoshana Rabbah and Shabbos coincide, then Hoshana Rabbah will supersede Shabbos and will still go around with the Aravos anyway. However, just to make sure to minimize and make sure we're not actually being Machal Shabbos, they would first take the Aravos and cut them before Shabbos, like not actually superseding, Me'erev Shabbos. When Zav, and so they put it into these golden receptacles that would keep them moist, so they wouldn't dry out. That way they'd be ready for Shabbos day. Rabbi Yochanan ben Paroko Omer, everything we've been discussing is about Charios Shel Dekel. So Charios Shel Dekel, if you look at Rashi says Charios are Anafim, the branches of the palm tree, as opposed to, so right, we're talking about the palm branches, as opposed to talking about the aravos. So I'm Avian v'chovton subbekarka, they would bring it, they would bang it on the ground, but see them mizbeach v'osayim nikra chibot charios. So he thinks we do chibot charios, but we do actually whack the aravos in the end of the day, though. The final part of the Mishnah is Miyad hatinokos shomtin es luvein va'ochen es esrogehen. I'll read it one way, and then Tosas will give us the alternative. So one way, the way Rashi understands this, is that the adults at the end of Yom Tov, they would confiscate and seize the lulavim and esrogim of the children, and they would take a bite out of their esrogim, which sounds not so nice. You ever hear the expression like taking candy from a baby? So it doesn't sound like such a nice thing to do to children. And so Rashi says, you can take a look, actually, it will be easier. Just look at Tosas. Tosas quotes Rashi and then gives his own, they give their own explanation. Look at Tosas, Dibur Masam, Yana Tinoko Shomtinis Luvein. So first they quote Rashi, Ulave Atinoko Shomtin Hagadol Miyadan. The Gedolim, the adults, would take the lulavim from their hands, va'ochen esrogehen shel tinokos, and they would eat also the esrogim of tinokos. Imagine you just finished Hoshana Rabbah, you just heard the Dvar Halacha, the times for Mincha Marav were announced, and all of a sudden someone grabs the esrog out of your hand and takes a big munch out of it. Not such a nice thing to do. But there's no breach of theft, there's no breach of etiquette. Rashi explains that they did this because of simcha. It was just part of the revelry of the celebration. We see a similar kind of discussion about if like petty crimes on Purim are waived because of the simcha. But here's what's really interesting. So I remember, when all my friends were getting married, it was wedding season, and we thought we were so creative. We'd bring lightsabers for Ketzan Merakdin, and like in middle of Ketzan Merakdin, you have a lightsaber duel. We thought we were so innovative and creative. Well, Tosfos tells us that they've been doing this at least since medieval times. The Yesh Lilma Mikan, Tosfos says we can learn from this a precedent. La'osan Bachrim Sherochvim Besusim Likras Chasan, that when they would go to greet the Chasan, his I guess the groomsmen, they would become riding on horses and pretend to be jousting. Nilchamim Zemzat, they'd be fighting with each other. V'korim Bigdo Shel Chavero Mekalko Lo Suso. Either he might tear his friend's clothing in the process or damage his horse. Shem Pturim, but they would be exempt from restitution. Shikachnagu machmas simchas chasan, because both parties went in with mutual consent that they'd be engaging in these activities, and it was okay due to the simcha. But what's interesting? Leaving this all aside, Tosfos says, you know what? Maybe we misread the Mishnah. Look back at the words of the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Miyar hatinokos shomtin esluvein. We rendered it based on Rashi as from the hands of the children, they would take their lulavim. But you know what else miyad means? Right? Some of you were there between the Chamar today, so you may have heard this part already. Miyad means immediately, right? I Judd, I think I read your lips right. So it means immediately. So look back at the Mishnah, read it as follows. It's not talking about taking from the children. It says miyad, immediately upon the conclusion of the Hoshana Rabbah service, hatinoko shomtes lulevein, the children would then discard their lulavim and eat their esrogim. So it's telling us what the children were doing, not what the adults were doing to the children's esrogim and lulavim, which personally that sits a lot better with me. So I'll just not that it's not like you paskin according to Rashi or Tosfos. It either happened or it didn't happen. But I'm a little bit more comfortable with Tosfos, so let's go with that. All right. To the Gemara, my friends. Tana makum kolonya hava. So this is referring back. Remember, we said they would go down to this place called Motza to get their aravos. Why would they go there? Because it was a place that was exempted from the king's taxes. All right. So if you remember in the Rabbi Feldman group people, let's see, from what I can see, I think Toby, Paul, right? Remember we talked about evasion, the tax evasion for tax avoidance for a little bit. So this was tax avoidance, not tax evasion. This place was exempted from taxes. So Utana Tidan, my time of Motza. So why do we call this place Motza? I did the mepak michraga de malka karili motza. Motza like to be taken out of. Since it was taken out, it was exempted from the tax. They called the place Motza. So they called it the tax exempt haven of Yerushalayim, apparently. Okay. So remember, they take these really big aravos and they place them at the mizbeach. Now this is a throwback. Remember, we were trying to figure out where do we get the idea of 20, was it about 20 amos? Back toward the beginning of the Masechta, we were trying to figure out what's the source of 20 amos. I'm flipping the pages back. So we brought up the Mizbeach, I remember. It was in the first parak. When we were talking about the different dimensions of, we brought up the Mizbeach. Let me see if I can turn the pages back and see if I find it. Anyone remember what I'm talking about here? I should have looked this up beforehand. Or the beginning of the Masechta, maybe. All right. At any rate, I'll have to locate the precise staff again. But we have had a discussion way back when, I believe in the first parak, and part of our discussion was assessing the height of the mizbeach. Oh, it was 10 tefachim. I think it was for 10 tefachim. Was it a 10 tefachim? All right. If no one else is remembering, that's fine. Anyway, we're talking about the mizbeach again. Okay, I'll look it back up. Talking about the mizbeach. So here we go. Tana Rubos are really the gears that are meant to rachos. They were soft enough that they could be malleable. They could be bent over. Varuchos ugvos, they were long, they were tall. Achadasar ama. These aravos were 11 amos. Kideshiu gochos al mizbeach ama. So that way they could go up. They could go up 10 amos and then dip down in ama. Amar Rememar Mishumar Zutra, Shmamina al Hayesod Manach Lahu. So basically, there's the ground level, and then you go up in Amma, and then there's the base, the Yesod of the Mizbeach, which is the first tier of the Mizbeach. So you have to go up in Amma, and then you have that tier over there. So the argument's going to be that the aravos were placed on the foundation of the Mizbeach, not on the ground under the foundation, because then it would not be sufficiently tall enough to extend over the Mizbeach. And he basically elaborates on it. He says, Manach, so Ayiso Manach Lahu, they placed it on the Yesod. Because if they placed it all the way down on the ground, mikti. Let's see how this could possibly work out. Ola Amma, we first have to go up an Amma, the Kanas Amma, because then it the Mizbeach begins to thin out a little bit. It has to go in an Amma. Zehu, right? So the Zehu Yesod. Then Ola Chamesh, it goes up another 5 Amos. And then the kanas ama zahu sovev. There's the sovev, which is the next layer. But then again, since it's thinning out, you have to spend a whole ama going in instead of going vertical. So Allah shalosh, it goes up 3 amos. Zahu makom hakranos. And then you get to the place of the chronos. So gochos agabe mizbeach heichim ishkachosla. But at this point, you've basically run out of rope. And there's no way for it to then extend upward, go up over the Mizbeach, and then dip back down in. So therefore, El Shmamina, Ayesod Manach Leho Shmamina. So they have to initially place it on the Yesod as opposed to directly on the ground. Again, my Mesivta Gemara, which is Bagashul, has a very nice diagram which shows it all out, but basically on a logical level, it just needs to start on the base, not on the ground. That's essentially what it's saying. Amar Rabbi Yavo, Mikra, and where do we find the basis for this in the pasuk? Shenemar Isru Chag Bavosim Akarnos Hamizbeach. So in this rendering, the term Isru means the circling of the Karnos Hamizbeach. So it's basically alluding to the fact that it has to go up a little bit and then surround the Mizbeach. And now that we brought up this pasuk, we're going to darshan it again. So Amar Avavo, Amar Avalazar, Kol Nota Lulav Ba'ogdo V'Adas Ba'avoso, Malav Akasuk Ilu Banam Mizbeach V'Hikra V'Lav Karban. Anyone who takes a lulav as it's bound and the hadas together, the pasuk, the Torah treats it as if you actually brought it on the mizbeach and you brought a karban, shenemar, isru chag bavosim akarnos hamizbeach. Here the word isru refers to binding. So it's like you binded the karban as you brought it on the mizbeach. So that's the next drasha. And we'll do one more drasha from this pasuk. Amar Rav Yirmiyah Mishum Rashim ben Yochai, Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rashim Hamachuzi, Mishum Yochanan Hamakusi. A lot of rabbis here. Kol ha'osa isur lechag. Anyone who makes an isur lechag. Generally, we don't like isurim, right? We don't like isur like prohibition. So here means binding. It doesn't mean like a prohibition. But you could see how etymologically, I guess that makes sense, how they fit together. Ba'achila ushtia, so anyone who binds together the chag with eating and drinking, having a suda, malav akatsugilu bana mizbeach, it's as if you built a mizbeach, the hikravel of carbon, as if you brought a carbon, shemar isru chag ba'avosim akarnos hamizbeach, and the word avosim here is being rendered, Rashi says, as referring to behemos avos ushmenos, like ava, as in thick. So it refers to thick animals, thick, robust, fat animals being brought on the Mizbeach. So that's apparently all sorts of different interpretations of this, all coming from that same pasuk. All right, and that brings us to the top of Memhe Amid Bays to 45B. And God willing, we'll pick it up hopefully next week as well. That's a wrap.
Have a good
Rabbi,
Shabbos.
what is the term Isru Chag normally? Like we use it in general. That's a term we use.
Well, with a
What does
suck.
that mean in outside of this context?
I mean, if
Is-
you're thinking like, well, I mean, it's a different Isru Chag, which is referring to the day after Yontif, but that's not what this is referring to.
okay.
Isru with, I don't think it's with a samach. But you're saying what's the? I mean, you tell me what's the classic art scroll rendering? What did they put it as?
Whatever you said.
Oh, like, you know what you need when you take out like an art scroll Tanakh and look it up. What's the rendering outside the context of the Gemara? I'd like to see that. Let's see. Or better yet, I think I have the JPS one. The JPS will try to give you the most.
So normally when we
Yeah.
use it, it just means after the holiday.
Yeah, but that's not the same. 1 second.
This is
I'm pulling
with an
them up.
yeah.
Yeah. 1 second. I got the JPS.
Here it says
Haven't-
join the festival.
All right, I haven't used this one in a while. Let's see what our academic friends have to say over here. All right, where are the coordinates here? What do we got? What's the citation of the pasuk?
Tehillim 118:27.
Tehillim.
Let's see. Sorry, one more time. Tehillim
118.
118.
Is it
Pasuk
in
27.
Is it in Hallel?
Yeah, yeah. It has a tune even to it. Toward the end.
That's
Yeah.
but that's
I mean, I'm not going to perform the whole thing, but yeah, very, very astute point.
No, here there's a commentary that says, according to this interpretation, the verse is translated thus: join the festival to the day that follows it. So it is the same
Oh, okay. Let's see.
consumption of fattened beasts.
There. Which pasuk was it?
27. Close Zion.
Chaf Zion. 27. All right, we're going to see the official standard rendering of it. You said 118:20. Ah, here it is. Got it. They translate it as bind. Bind the festival offering to the horns of the altar with the cords. So they have
Chabad has the
bind.
same thing.
But
Chabad has binding.
then they have a
festival
footnote that says
offering.
meaning of Hebrew uncertain.
Chabad
So
translation is bind with ropes.
right. Bavos. Well, that's bavosim. Bavosim.
Yeah.
For the
it's
rope.
true.
So that there's a number of ambiguous terms in here. So they're each being kind of twisted depending on which version you'd like. Right, and then Isru Chag, like you said, Toby. Okay, I was curious to just see, because I think the JPS generally doesn't do it based on Chazal. So it's interesting to see. So they go with binding, but then they have a footnote saying meaning of Hebrew uncertain. Okay, interesting. Very good. Shach, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, have a
Happy
good
Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good job,
Bye. Shabbos.
everybody.